I think Doc Rivers is a great coach for sure, but I think Rick Carlisle needs to get more credit, man. I mean, shit. Like you're saying, bro, just the team that he's been able to build. He knows where to put Andrew Nemhard, Benedict Mathurin, Obi Top, all everybody. He knows where to put everybody to be successful, and it's amazing to watch. The Pacers are also one of the better Eastern Conference teams we've had all year. I think for me, another thing is too is like who's going to be able to really guard Cade? I don't know if OG and McCall Bridges have been able to slow him down, and to me that's a bit worrisome, especially whenever you have those types of just defensive stoppers. And to be honest with you, Cade is not going to be the toughest guard they face in the playoffs this year.
I
So
think what we've been seeing out of Paolo and Franz for this playoff series is kind of what I was expecting. I kind of figured that they were going to be, getting to it and, causing a little bit of problems for the Celtics, and that held up. But I think it's just kind of like you said, we've been saying about pretty much the Cavs and the Heat as well. It's just the Celtics just have a better team at the end of the day.
So the Timberwolves have done an extremely good job of keeping him at bay. Not from a scoring perspective, he still got 40 in the first game and then 30s across the board, but from getting other people involved and then turning us into an ISO heavy team, I think that's where the Timberwolves have had the upper hand on us all series. And they've shut me up, man. Their defensive rating continues to shine through, and there's nothing I can do about it. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boys over here at Three Man Weave. I'm your lovely co-host CD in the building with CJ. We coming at you guys live on a Wednesday. It's April 30th. Haven't done it in a little while, man. It's been about a week, but just been going through stuff. Like I was telling you before we hopped on here. It don't really matter. You gotta just keep being consistent. It doesn't matter what you're going through. But I pray for everybody, man. We're here to chop it up about some lovely playoff hoops today. CJ, how you doing today, bro? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, bro. Just was excited to hop on and chop it up with you about all these games. It's like you said, it's been a week,
Yep.
so we got a decent amount to cover, but super excited, bro. We were chopping it up as we usually do before we started recording, and it's a lot going on, man. A lot of
Yeah.
questions, a lot of questions that have been answered for us. So
Oh
I'm feeling
yeah.
great, bro. Can't wait for the
Good.
the games tonight as well.
Yeah, I'm focused on staying up while I'm down, Like I think that's been the mantra for the years, just while we're in the mud and we're going through it, just making sure that we're staying positive and we're believing in ourselves. So I'm ready to chop it up with you, man. I think like you said, it's been a week. We haven't talked about hoops in a while, We text back
Of
and forth, but
course.
for our lovely audience, we appreciate you guys checking us out. So you ready to get into it? Let's get right into it,
Let's get
man.
into it, bro.
I'm gonna start with the Cavs and the Heat. This was a what do you call it? Look, CJ, what do you call this? That's
A
sweet. You
little
feel me?
sweep,
So,
man.
yeah, man. Margin of victory, total margin. So this is all of their wins combined. 122 points, NBA record. Last two games, he kind of fell off the wagon. It's Tyler Hero had a poor performance in Game 4, right? And obviously he made that comment about how they weren't going to lose in 4 games. I think what I had in my notes, it was just tired legs, and it just really came back to bite them. I think Spoelstra was talking in his exit interview as well. I think Kenny just outcoached them. To be honest with you, it's crazy, but I think Spo would agree. The Cavaliers staff outcoached the
Oh,
Heat staff for
without a
sure.
doubt.
Just in terms of tactics, they dictated the pace of the game. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell, Ty Jerome, Evan Mobley, they just had too many weapons for the Heat. And I think that's really what this series came down to. I know in game three, the Cavs ended up beating the Heat 124-87. So another just like complete rout, and they really just dominated with a balanced game, man. They're one of the more balanced teams in the NBA. They have been all season, and I think it's you just brought this up, but the question that you might have had or other people may have had with the Cavs is like, what is their team going to look like in the playoffs, and more specifically their bench players? But bro, they're the real deal.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
obviously they have that NBA record now, and I think they have a lot of momentum going into the second round. I know they're going to be facing the Pacers, and we'll get into that in a second. But just the way that they were able to dictate the pace of the game, like I had alluded to earlier, I think Donovan Mitchell too. Just he's done it all year, but he's just really, he's kind of like taken the burden off of other people by becoming a better initiator and allowing other people to score more. And I think that's really where they dominated. And they also just killed them on the threes. And honestly, to be honest with the audience, if you aren't hitting 14, 15 threes a game, second conference finals, like you're going to be in trouble, especially if you're going up against a team who can shoot a lot of threes and then hit a lot of threes, which the Cavs can. So I don't have a ton to say other than the Cavs look extremely great. And then the Heat, obviously they were kind of the darlings of the play-in, the 10 seed. Obviously they deserved to be in the playoffs over the Hawks, but I just think they came up on tired legs and they just weren't able to get it done this season. But I did want to say, man, if you're a Heat fan, you should be extremely, happy with the way that your team fought, especially down the stretch. Davion Mitchell, Tyler Hero. I know, unfortunately, Kevin Love's parents recently passed away, so I saw his dad passed
Yeah.
away, so shout out to him. But even just all those players like that, Jaime Jaquez, Jovic, like you guys were able to string together a couple wins at the end of the season with a roster that honestly shouldn't have been there, in
Yep.
my opinion, and I'm sure in your opinion as well. And
Hmm.
I think the Cavs just had you guys outclassed, but in no way, shape, or form should you guys be ashamed or disappointed with the way that you guys played. And I think it's really just a testament to the Heat culture and what you guys believe in. And going forward, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Bam and Hero, especially next year. I'm excited to also see where Davion Mitchell ends up signing because he's an unrestricted free agent.
Hmm.
Hopefully, we see him back in a Heat jersey.
Yeah.
To me, he was really the best player in the series for them. He just showed the most effort. And even when they were down 20, 25 points, he was still playing extremely hard defense and trying to score. So give him a little clap for that. But outside of that, man, there's really not much to talk about in the series. I think the Cavs were just the Giants and, the Heat were the Beanstalk.
Yeah. Yeah. No, bro, you said it perfectly. I was, like I alluded to earlier in the podcast, I feel like the questions that I had about the Cavs were answered this playoffs or this series. Granted, it was the Heat, but they still made the playoffs, and I think that's I just needed to see that. And now going into the next round for them, I feel like that's going to build up their confidence. Ty Jerome is going to be taking the shots that he was taking, and
Oh, yeah.
Max Struess he's able to do that in big moments as well. So they impressed me, bro. I'm not gonna lie. The fact that they blew him out by what 50 points game
Yeah, it was
four,
138-83 in
83,
game
bro.
four. And Donovan
Crazy.
Mitchell had 22 points, bro, and was the leading scorer.
Yeah.
So it goes to show you how balanced the Cavs are.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean it was in front of us all season, bro. I mean we saw what they were doing, and I know you believed in them. You say they're going to the finals. I was a little more skeptical, but they're looking good, man. So really just impressed by the Cavs and kind of just by committee that the team that they have. And shout out to Evan Mobley. He
Mhm.
won DPOY, so they got one of the best defense player in the league on their team as well. So they're in a good spot, bro. It's exciting, but kind of like what you're saying. If you are a Heat fan, I feel like the question is now where y'all gonna go with, like you said, Tyler Hero and Bam. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because obviously we seen a little bit of what they can provide for the team, and I wouldn't say. I mean, they might be a playoff team.
They aren't a finals
They're
team.
on a
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's
Right.
kind of like what direction are they going to be going to, and that's probably something we'll probably break down more depth later
Yeah.
on in the summer and stuff. But just kind
Yeah,
of
we'll
what
talk
I'm
about it.
thinking about as I'm going through the
Yeah.
series and stuff. But yeah, super impressed with Davion Mitchell, bro. You said it
Yep.
yourself. I saw what he was being able to provide in the play in games and kind of what he was able to do as well leading into this first round. Just I hope they sign him again. He seems like he is
Yeah.
like a Heat type of player, and I think he can, take
They will.
take. I feel like they could take. He could probably be like their one guard, kind of be like a defensive specialist type of deal, and then have Tyler Hero like be the main ball handler still. But if he needs to, he could pass it to him and run the offense through him as well. So I think that would be a perfect pairing. But everything else, like you said, bro, not much to talk about. This
Yeah.
is one of those series where they just got outclassed. I just think the Cavs are a better team, and like you said, Kenny and the whole coaching staff for the Cavs had a great game plan.
I think I saw a stat. It was the Cavs outscored them in every quarter. So.
Yeah, it's crazy.
There you go.
There you
It's
go.
just, yeah, I just, yeah. Like, I love the Heat and how competitive they are. I think watching the play-in for me was the highlight of their year.
100%.
I think for you too, bro. Like, and probably for that franchise, just seeing that they can still compete and obviously get a playoff spot. But yeah, I mean, they probably weren't expecting to win this series. We spoke about it. But honestly, the Cavs, I'll tip my cap to that. They deserve it. They've had a solid season all year, and clearly they're going in the second round with a lot of momentum, bro. So I'm excited to see, if our predictions can hold up. You know what I'm saying? I think I have the Cavs Thunder, bro. I don't even have the Lakers in there, so
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm excited because I think what you want to talk about the Bucks Pacers next.
Yeah.
You get a chance to watch those games, bro, and see how hyped they were.
Yes, bro. Yeah, I saw, for one, I saw the Gary Trent Jr. masterclass.
Oh
These
yeah,
really the game that they won, obviously, and even last game, bro. I think that was kind of, my question. Obviously, Dame tore his Achilles. We haven't
Dame.
talked about
Oh
that.
my gosh,
Sucks to
man.
see it, and I
Oh
think
my gosh.
that was kind of,
Oh,
the nail in the coffin for them. I'm not gonna lie. That was a huge, reason why we thought that the series was gonna be competitive, because he came back from the blood clot, and the fact that he tore his Achilles, bro. It's gonna be tough, man. So
oh,
hopefully, all
prayers
prayers
up.
up to Dame, bro. You being in the league is always a joy to see, and it sucks seeing, one of the best shooters in this era, be down like that. But yeah, no, kind of going back to, a little bit of recap of kind of what the series is, that master class of a performance from Gary Trent. I feel like that was kind of something that we were
Hell yeah.
we were talking about, like, hey, who's going to be the next person to step up? Bobby Portis had that one great game they lost, and you're getting AJ Green hitting some big shots, but I think I saw a stat. Gary Trent Jr. and Giannis are the two Bucks teammates to score 35 or more points in a playoff game. First ever.
Wow.
Crazy.
Wow.
But
That's really cool.
yeah, no, it's
9 of 12 from deep. I think he had like 9 or 10 triples too.
yeah, cooking,
Yeah,
bro. So
yeah, cooking.
he laid it out on all on the floor, but dude, pretty much what you've been saying about the Pacers all year, kind of what I've been saying. They're just they're a good team, bro. Like they're like
Yeah,
what more can we say?
yeah.
Like I feel like the things that we've been talking about them for the past season or two, the whole defensive side of the ball. They understand the roster that they have, and it's kind of keying in on Giannis. Obviously, he's gonna get his, but more so worried about everyone else. And they did a great job of playing just team defense, because there's not a lockdown defender, I would say, on that team, but just the
Pacers,
way,
yeah.
yeah, just the way that they're able to do rotations, and then obviously Halliburton going crazy, hit that little game winner yesterday, and
Mm,
it is a great, like, it was a 5 game series, but those games were great just because it was just like,
competitive, right?
yeah, what is Giannis gonna be able to get him above this challenge that they're facing right now? And obviously, like I said, that Dame injury, I think that was kind of what took the air out of their
Nail in the
arena.
coffin.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, bro, and I'm gonna bring this up too, man. I think I think Doc Rivers is a great coach for sure. But I think Rick Carlisle needs to get more credit, man. I mean, shit. Like you're saying, bro, just the team that he's been able to build. He knows where to put Andrew Nemhard, Benedict Mathurin, Obi Top, everybody. He knows where to put everybody to be successful, and it's amazing to watch. The Pacers are also one of the better Eastern Conference teams we've had all year. Kind of quietly being that team, I think Pascal Siakam's been a fit for them. And honestly, I think they would do that trade again and sign him to that $240 million deal again in a heartbeat. Like you're saying, I think the Dame injury really impacted the Bucks, but to see Giannis battle like this, his competitive spirit, and then the back and forth, bro, I love it. I think every single bit of trash talk was in good spirits. They weren't, trying to disrespect each other. I think every time after the game, they were like, "Oh yeah, nah," but it's all good. Like it's just on the court. But
Yeah.
seeing LeBron go at it with Tyrese's dad at the end was pretty cool, and just I don't know, man, just the rivalry that's been created between the Bucks and the Pacers. I'm excited to see kind of how that continues down the line. The question mark with the Bucks remains. You're not going to get Dame for about, I would say, 6 to 8 months, and then on the unlucky side, maybe a year.
Yeah.
So what is your team going to look like next year without Lillard in that lineup? And then is Giannis still going to be there, man? I think he got asked the question in his exit interview again. You know, is the Milwaukee Bucks the franchise that you want to continue your career with? And he was like, I'm not going to answer that right now because I know you guys are going to try to spin this out of proportion. In my opinion, though, I think he averaged 35, 12 and 6 or something this playoff series. I think he just needs more help than what he currently has. And until he gets that or goes to a team that has those weapons, I don't know if the Bucks are a serious playoff threat. In fact, I think they've gotten bounced the last 3 years in the first round.
Yep.
I know the Pacers won game 4, 129, 103. And that was another kind of, I think, again, besides that or that close, like, game winning bucket, I think it's been competitive throughout the game, but they've always kind of just let go of the rope. And who knows why that is? I think that franchise is, I don't know, bro. Like, I think they're kind of in an interesting spot because I'm trying to see what their plan is for the future. The Kyle Kuzma trade as well. They gave up some of their draft picks, which is not the smartest move to do either. And I know the Wizards obviously are very happy that they made that trade. So, taking Chris Middleton as well, a seasoned veteran, and then, yeah, the Dame injury just killed the entire momentum of the series. I think after that, they just had nobody who could really guard Tyrese. So he was able to get everybody involved. He didn't really do a ton of damage scoring wise, but obviously hit that game winning bucket in the last game, and that's kind of what sealed it. But I think this series was definitely cut. Kind of the audience got unlucky because it was cut due to injuries that happened to some of the superstars, and obviously Dame is beloved by the entire NBA community. That you're really not going to find anybody that's a Dame hater. I just hope that he's okay, man. All prayers to him, and hopefully he can be out there next year. Kind of like Kyrie, same kind of situation, but just seeing him sit on the floor, man, and just be like, yeah, I'm done. I
Yeah.
know I'm done for sure. So after that, I think that series is it, like you said, it's where it really flipped, and the Pacers just dictated the pace, no pun intended, the entire series, and the Bucks just really couldn't keep up. It's really that simple. 5-game series. That one game, I feel like the Bucks were able to win just because of that Gary Trent Jr. 37-point performance or something like that. But yeah, if you're not getting that, then you are not getting any W's.
Yeah.
Pacers are way more of a balanced team, so that's kind of my analysis on that series. Really nothing too like out of the ordinary. I think the Pacers have been the better team pretty much all season.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So, yep. But rolling right along, man. You ready to chop it up about the Pistons and the Knicks?
Yeah. Yeah, bro. Let's
Yeah,
do
bro.
it.
Hey, man. So this series is interesting. Obviously, this past game, the Pistons got that kind of. They were able to salvage off, going home
Mm-hmm.
and secure a victory, which was interesting. But I think they've been, since game 3, I think the Knicks have kind of taken control. I know they stole that nail biter. I think it was 118, 116. Obviously, Jalen Brunson and Cat have been a lot better. I think Cat was mainly the one who we were waiting to get it going, but he's kind of proven that he's here. You were asking some questions of whether or not he could handle dealing with Jalen Duren's athleticism. And I think the way he's been able to combat that is just what he can do on the perimeter, just providing 3-point shooting and allowing the Knicks to kind of space the floor and get more points in that manner. But game 4 was also a thriller, bro. I think the Knicks barely won that game too. It was another 1-point game. So this series has been completely seesaw. I think Jalen Brunson's kind of been probably the best player in this series, so I feel like the Knicks should still win. But as the Pistons start to figure this out and kind of what Cade has, I think his clutch gene was kind of shown last night, but he's been consistently doing it all season and then all playoff series. And I think he's kind of been the one that's leading the main catalyst to leading that offense to what it's been able to provide. I know it's been more of a defensive series, but the Pistons have been able to score. Dennis Schroeder, Malik Beasley with timely threes. Jalen Durham being in the dunker spot. So they're refusing to go down quietly, bro. And I haven't been like closely watching Detroit all season, so I don't want to speak on it like I know them. But watching them in the playoffs, it just seems like JB Bickerstaff has them prepared. Just their defensive rotations and then everything they're doing on offense. It seems like they know how big the moment is and what they're trying to provide. I think the Knicks, obviously, they took that loss in Game 5, but definitely look for them to be able to figure this out. I still believe in the Knicks, and I think you chose the Knicks as well. I think you might have had them in 6 or 7, but I think they're still hanging right with the Pistons, and they're still, there's no room for panic. Basically, Brunson, he had a poor game last game, I think 16 points, but if he's able to get his 25 or 30, I think you're looking at a Knicks win there. So they've played great defense this entire series. I think Thibodeau's had those guys locked in from the jump. Obviously, they've had to play heavy minutes too, being the way that's his coaching style. But I think if they can continue to play defense like this and then hit their three balls, I think they're going to be able to close this series out in 6. I think for me, another thing is like, who's going to be able to really guard Cade? I don't know if OG and McCall Bridges have been able to slow him down, and to me that's a bit worrisome, especially whenever you have those types of defensive stoppers. And to be honest with you, Cade is not going to be the toughest guard they face in the playoffs this year. So it's a little bit interesting to me how they haven't been able to slow him down yet. Cade really hasn't shot the best, but he's been able to get his players involved and then obviously score about 25 points a game in this series. So I think the Knicks do have some defensive question marks they still need to answer. But from what I've seen, man, they still look like they're in control of this series, even though they took a loss last night. I think, what was it? It was like 106, 103 yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, hey, Pistons did it on the road, though.
Yeah.
So you know what they say, man. They say it's not a series until the home team loses. So the Pistons have some dogs, man. They're not going down quietly. I'm excited to see what they can. I don't know when they play next. They don't play tonight. Maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, I think they play tomorrow.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to see that game, man.
Yes.
I know that's going to be super exciting. This is another series that's been pretty seesaw, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, just coming right down to the wire. Every game has been extremely competitive, and they just match up really well against each other. So I think the Knicks and the Pistons is like such a classic rivalry too. So if you're an NBA hoop head, I know you've been enjoying watching this series. But what are some of your thoughts on the last few games that have been played?
Yeah, dude, it's been incredible. Honestly, I think this is, like you said, I think I had the Knicks in 7. I just think the matchup, the way that the Pistons are able to match up with them was kind of why I thought so. Obviously, a lot of unanswered questions at the beginning of the playoffs, but I think Cade has shown why he's an all-star this year and why he'll probably be all NBA type player for the foreseeable future. You know what I mean? I think that's with a team like the Knicks, who are veterans and they're pretty good defensively. Like you said, it is very alarming that they haven't really figured out a way to stop him. But I think that just goes to show the type of player that he is. Right.
Yeah.
So, but no, it's been great. Like you said, Dennis Schroeder being able to come off the bench and provide offense, and even he's pretty much a starter essentially. He's playing those big minutes and stuff. But I've been really impressed with Jalen Brunson, bro. I'm obviously clutch player of the year. He's that for a reason. I think when it comes down to it, I think that's obviously why I said that they were going to win, but that's going to be the deciding factor. I think he's just ready for those type of moments, and he doesn't shy away from it. And, when it comes to it, that he's going to get the ball in his hands, and he's probably going to make a play. And I feel like that's been what this whole series has really, it's been on Jalen Brunson's back. Obviously, you get these good performances from everyone, but when the game's on the line, he gets the ball. So I trust that man.
Legler was saying, he was like, man, when Brunson, if the game is within 3 to 5 points, it's the last 3 minutes, he's like, that cat, Jalen Brunson, is going to be able to figure it out. And we talked about it, man, the free throws, right? And just whenever it gets close, who has the ball, who's initiating the offense, and really being able to get into the paint and hit clutch timely threes. Like, you brought up Schroeder, hit that massive triple. I think in Game 4 it was, just to be able to help them out a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I don't know. It's I think the Pistons have done a good job kind of keeping the Knicks on their toes and giving them different looks. But yeah, like you're saying, I think they just have to double Brunson when it gets to clutch time.
Yeah, and that's obviously he's gonna make the right plays. So it's kind of like if you're would it seems like they're willing to
Live
have
with
it
it.
live with Brunson deciding these games, and I don't think that's the right choice. But like you said, it's their first playoff series. That they've been competitive in a long time, so they have a lot to learn. But yeah, no, this has probably been, I would say, probably the we'll get into the other one, probably the second best playoff series so far, I would say. But
I would say so too.
it's been super competitive every game. Like you said, the margin of victories is, besides game one, it's all like single digits. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah,
that's all you
I
can
missed
ask
the
for.
one yesterday, bro.
Yeah,
So
so did I.
I know yeah, I know you did too. So like, it's like, oh no, like I missed that one that was super close, but all the other ones have been close too, man. And I think it really just depends on the free throw disparity and who has the ball at the end of the game and kind of what those looks look like. And I think the Pistons are in a they're playing with house money, bro. I talked about it. They don't have any pressure. Like you said, it's their first playoff series. I think the Knicks, where they stand and where Tom Thibodeau is putting them in certain positions, they really have to work extremely hard to be able to figure out how they're going to win these games. So this series is interesting, man. I like it. I think if you're a Detroit or a Knicks fan, you've been probably on the edge of your seat a lot
Every
more than
game.
I have been, for sure.
Yep. Yeah, bro.
Yep. But hey, you ready to talk about this final Eastern Conference matchup?
Yeah. Yeah, let's get it.
All right, my man. The Celtics Magic. What you think so far, man? Obviously, the series got wrapped up. Uh, you know, I think the Magic were also just in a tough situation. But what are your thoughts on the way that they played and the way that their season was able to conclude?
Yeah, bro. It's I had high praise for the Orlando Magic all season, even going into this season. So the fact that they lost two of their players for a big chunk of the season, and then obviously two of their other players for the rest of the season. The fact that they were able just to kind of battle back and to wrap up the end of the regular season, and they were able to get one game from the defending champs. So kind of going in the right direction. And I think I said I said the C's would win in five, but I thought that they could take one game away from them, and they were able to. So as an or a Magic, someone that has been watching the Magic fairly closely, I talk highly of them and stuff. I think that was obviously you don't want to lose a playoff series at all, right? But the fact that they were able to steal one, just they're it's just good to see, bro. I think what we've been seeing out of Paolo and Franz for this playoff series is kind of what I was expecting. I kind of figured that they were going to be, getting to it and causing a little bit of problems for the Celtics, and that held up. But I think it's just kind of like you said, we've been saying about pretty much the Cavs and the Heat as well. It's just the Celtics just have a better team at the end of the day. And I just think the experience for the Magic, obviously not having a full roster, but they're missing a lot of stuff too. I think just when it comes down to it, just their offense is just like we've been saying it all year, just kind of gets stuck in mud and gets very sloppy, and not
Yeah,
having a reliable 3-point shooter is really what's
yeah,
affecting them. And hopefully Paolo and Franz going into this offseason, they work on that, because they're great players, and but you need to be able to hit those open 3-pointers. I feel like that's kind of where their season kind of boiled down to. But the fact that they were able to get one win, bro, is super impressed. Yeah, it's just kind of what we've been seeing from the
yeah. It's
Celtics
tough.
from what I mean.
Defending
It's
champions.
yeah,
Um, let's see. I mean, Tatum had a lovely performance in that closing game. I think his injury may have shifted the series a little bit. They were able to get that game three win. I think it was still close though. When I pull it up in my notes, I got 95-93. So they were able to play the Celtics close. Still, like CJ was saying, still a win away from them on their home court. But I think the Celtics, just their playoff poise and the way that they are so balanced and their depth. Peyton Pritchard, six man of the year, Derek White, Porzingis, Horford, all of these guys. It's just too much for the Magic. And I think, again, we've talked about it before. We'll talk about it right now. Just the 3 point disparity was too much in this series. It was a defensive series. I don't think there was a besides last night. I don't know if the Celtics scored like 130, 135 points. I think they
Mm-hmm.
had 120 points last night. But other than that, the Magic were able to keep them under wraps. And to your point, I think that speaks to the type of defense that they've been able to build over there in Orlando, and very promising. Jalen Brown spoke highly of their duo, and he said that Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner are kind of the lifelines to their team, and they have a very promising future. And he said he was excited to continue to battle them in the playoffs because one day, when you're a loser and you want to become a winner, you're going to figure out a way to win. And it's really going to take going through defending champions, teams you've faced over and over again to be able to call yourself a winner. So I'm excited for the Magic. The last two games, the Celtics just really dominated with their depth. They dictated the pace of play. Missoula was very, adamant about making sure they get up more threes than the Magic, making sure that they're winning the defensive and offensive rebounding battle. And they were able to do that, man. They just shifted into a different gear, and the Celtics just have this button that they can press whenever they feel like turning it up another notch. They can get there, and I think that's really the separating factor in this series is, you got a young coach in Jamal Mosley, a young roster in the Orlando Magic, and you have a championship coach in Joe Mazzulla and a championship roster in the Boston Celtics. So, it's going to be tough for the Magic, being in the East and trying to build a similar team to the Celtics. But I think they have a perfect, blueprint model to be able to. Okay, we need shooters, right? We weren't able to compete with the Celtics in terms of shooting threes. We need people who can shoot threes at a high clip. Malik Beasley on the Orlando Magic would be perfect. Those
Mm-hmm.
types of players, right? Just to give them a chance against teams who are heavy hitters. But yeah, that duo of Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum, it's just too much. They were just able to display their dominance on both sides, and I think it's just a testament to the type of roster the Celtics have built. Even Luke Cornett, guys that are the last man on the bench, they still can contribute in the playoffs at a high level because they're used to it. So I think it just came down to experience, depth, 3 point shooting, things we've harped on pretty much all season in all playoffs. But the Magic have nothing to scoff at. I think they're also in a much better position than a lot of the Eastern Conference teams, and I think their roster is close to being filled out. Jonathan Isaac, Wendell Carter Jr. We wanted more from Cole Anthony and Anthony Black for sure, but they had a good year too, doing what they can from a scoring perspective. But from what I saw, it was just dominance around the board from the C's, and I think it just speaks to the culture that they've built over there. So more power to them. The series was finished in 5 games. Game five, 120 to 89. So the Celtics were just able to completely steamroll them on the offensive end, and I think that's just what it came down to.
Yeah, well said.
Offense.
Well said, bro. Yeah, I think the one
Yes,
thing
sir.
I will give them the Magic as well, they definitely brought the intensity. I think that was like I was saying, obviously a great matchup for the C's, but something that you usually don't see out of a first round matchup. You know what I mean? Being a younger team, being a lower seed as well. Like they definitely were kind of beating them up a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, like physicality wise. Obviously, like
Yeah,
literally,
yeah,
like
like pushing them
Porzingis.
around. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah,
You
so
know.
I think that's, something that they can probably build off of going into the off season. And like I said, we'll talk about this later on in the season, just kind of, brainstorming, just talking and stuff.
Right.
But it's something that you like to see from a young team is what I'm getting at. Kind of like what the Pistons are in a sense, like getting a little bit of playoff experiences going against a championship team, and you were able to, some of these games could have swung in your favor if if it was going the right way. But yeah, that's another thing I wanted to bring up for the Magic as well. Just the physicality, how aggressive they were. They weren't really shying away from the competition. You know what I mean? Obviously, they
Not at
didn't
all.
go in their favor, but for Jamal Mosley or even their GM, just kind of seeing that, it's something that y'all can build off of going into this season. So excited to
Exactly.
see what they can be this upcoming year, and yeah, bro, just hopefully they can get some free agents or get new pickups or get a trade or something. I think that, like you said, just 3-point shooting, some offensive things. I think defensive side, we kind of know what to expect from them, and it's just
Yeah,
really
they don't need to answer any questions on defense. They're able to stop a highly potent offense in the Boston Celtics. I think that speaks volumes of where they are at defensively. Um, but in my opinion, they just need to continue to work on their offensive game, their structure, making sure. I think Jamal Mosley's done a great job over there, so I don't think they have any coaching worries, no staffing issues. It's really just focusing on the players,
player.
continuing to
Yeah,
develop them and
develop.
their skills, and what they're going to be able to offer in the future. But extremely proud of the Magic and what they did this season, and hopefully those guys can continue to prosper. So that's the Eastern Conference side right now. The two series that have obviously concluded are the Celtics and then that Knicks Pistons series. But and then no, my bad, sorry, the Bucks and Pacers
Pacers.
series.
Yeah,
But
so we're just
the
waiting for the
Pistons and
Knicks.
Knicks, and then the Pistons and Knicks, and then obviously Cavs too. They just too much, too
Too
much. I
much.
think whenever you get a sweep, that definitely shows you that like that other team was just outclassing them. Four
Mm-hmm.
straight wins says a lot about where you are. Even the Magic were able to get one. So um, we'll head on over to the Western Conference. Are you ready to chop it up about the one and only Oklahoma City Thunder, who can seem to do no wrong at this moment? Who honestly, they're not playing for a little while because the Western Conference is still undecided. I think this is the only series that's complete.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yeah, so it's been of course I love watching playoff basketball, but just kind of waiting at this point, just kind of seeing who we're gonna get matched up against, but kind of wrapping up the series with the Grizz. That game 3, bro, that just showed a lot for me. For everyone that doesn't know, we were down by 29 at one point, and then I think going into the half we were down by 26. So I think that was the largest playoff like first half like point differential in like playoff history. So we broke
Yeah,
another
yeah.
record, and it just proved a lot to me, bro. Because obviously Ja got injured. I hope everything with him is all right, doing fine. Of course, I speak highly of him. He's one of my favorite players. But I think that was another Dame type of situation. It just kind of took the air right out of the building, and that was kind of the nail in the coffin. And just kind of seeing what Chet has been able to provide, bro. I feel like we've been talking about Jada very highly this whole season, which rightfully so, All Star. But I think what he's been able to provide for the team so far in the playoffs is really why we were able to sweep the Grizzlies. I think there was one game he scored 1 point in the first half, then he dropped 23 the second half, and that was our comeback actually. So he hit like 3 big threes in a row, and just kind of the versatility of what he's able to provide for us on the court. I feel like that's something last season in the playoffs we kind of obviously we were lacking, but this is his first time in the playoffs coming off that injury and stuff. So this year so far, that's probably been the player I've been really impressed with. Obviously Shea, hasn't been shooting the most efficient, but honestly, bro, I feel like that's something we see during the regular season, so we expect it, but playoffs is just different. I feel like that's something a lot of people need to realize. Like, yeah, he's not shooting 60% from the field, but if we're still getting a win, at the end of the day, that's really all that matters to me, at least. You know what I mean? I'm not a super big, looking at the box score. Oh, he shot nine
Yeah,
for
box
20.
score warrior, bro.
Right,
Box
right.
score warrior.
But yeah, bro. Honestly, that's not really much else to say on my part. Just kind of just waiting at this point. Hopefully, I think that we've proven to people that we can go a little bit of time without playing and still come back. We might be a little rusty going to this next series, but I think more than likely the series or the series that we would be going against next, I think that's gonna go 7. So we're gonna get, like you were saying before we started recording, a full round of rest. And I feel
Yeah.
like with us, that's kind of been our thing all season. Just knick-knack injuries here and there, but just been super impressed, with the boys, and really just Chet, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you. That's who's really been. I think he's our X factor so far. I think hopefully he could stay like that. But Lou Dort has been, you know, pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie to you, but he's been great on the defensive side, and I feel like that's all that I'm really asking for from him.
Right.
Hit a couple threes. 2, 3 threes. That's good. Get a layup and just lock up the best player, or not even lock up, just contain their best player. And I feel like he's doing a great job of that. Isaiah Joe is still hitting big threes, and yeah, just can't complain, bro. I think this is a good year, bro. That's all I could say. I don't want to speak
Yeah,
too soon, but yeah.
oh, you don't have any losses to talk about, but um, where do I start? I think for me, well, let's start with the Shea kind of silence, game winner, sort of, you could say, but
Yeah.
that kind of just put the bow on it for me. I think Shea had a bad series. You could say he was not an efficient player. I doubt it'll hurt his MVP case. I still think he's going to win, but he just didn't shoot the best in this, series, which is fine. But like you alluded to, man, their resilience, them prove. I think that, hey, man, give credit where credit's due. The Grizzlies blitzed them in that game that they
Oh,
were down like
100%.
20 something. I think in the first quarter they outscored them. It was like 40
40.
something to
Yeah.
20 something.
Mm-hmm.
So they obviously had energy. Like you said, they were always fighting. I think the jaw injury is really what shifted that series. But I think in the second half, I noticed, like, man, if the Thunder could come back, I saw on Flip they hung like a plus 1600 or something for
Yeah.
them to win outright. And obviously nobody's going to take that because they're down 30.
30. Yeah.
But if you did and you're smart, and obviously they're one of the best teams in the last decade, it's definitely an interesting look. But yeah, once they came back from that, game 4 was, I mean, it's it's easy.
Yeah.
If, if
Yeah.
you can if you can come back from a 27 point deficit and still be a team and be resilient and continue to battle and get stops. And one thing I was really just impressed with is their ability to get stops, especially timely ones. And I think Caruso was the X factor in this
Yes.
series, just being everywhere, making an impact on defense. And I think going forward, he's going to be somebody that a lot of teams are going to have to worry about. And they aren't necessarily, they're going to be thinking about him, but like, he'll just pop up on you out of nowhere, give you 15, and then get 3 steals and a block.
Block.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, bro, like the Thunder have all the weapons at their disposal. I think this is another example of them just outclassing their opponent. I don't think the Grizzlies were ready for this series. We spoke about it earlier, but they've just had so many games, especially they just haven't had any rest. I think the Thunder were on 2 weeks of rest. So they
Yeah.
had the playing week and then they started playoffs. And so they were just well rested, had a lot more energy, and it really showed. Like you said, I think they have to, I think this is a great series for J-Dub, though, bro. I would say he's probably the player of the series just in terms of what he brought on the offensive end and then just being able to step up for them whenever they needed it. I think he had, when they were down, I know whenever they were down big, he was really like still scoring and showing effort and still being out there. And so I love to see that from those cats, man. Just the never give up attitude and just the way that they're able to be so consistent, just the way that they play and their team defense and everything. So they just had it clicking this entire series. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think they also outscored the Grizzlies pretty much the entire way.
Mm-hmm.
Even when they were down, they still ended up, I don't know how much they won by, but I think their net rating for the series is plus like 40 something.
Yeah. It's crazy, bro. Yeah. It's one thing I will
Crazy.
say about the Grizz, though. I was very impressed with Scottie Pippen Jr., bro. I think he kind of, obviously, I think, the jaw injury obviously is a reason why he was able to put up big numbers. But even when him and Jaw were sharing the backcourt, or even when he would come off the bench or whatever, he proved a lot to me, honestly. And I feel like he's one of those players where a lot of GMs probably saw that and were like, "Oh, okay, didn't know he could play like that." You know what I mean? So I think it was a cool little like coming out playoff series, even though they got swept, but like kind of showing what he can provide. And honestly, bro, I think I talked about it as well, and probably like the first or second game, I was like, yeah, he's a solid player, bro. But yeah, no, just kind of seeing him be able to take like the main ball handler, like playmaker task was I was pretty impressed, bro. Because they're
Ex-Laker.
ex-Laker, bro, crazy. But yeah, just kind of like that was the main player for me that stood out, on the Grizz. But I think it was just like you said, just kind of got outclassed by us. We were just overall a better team, and I think also firing Taylor Jenkins might have had something to do with them getting
Oh,
swept as
right,
well.
right. Yeah.
So they had an interim coach in that spot. Tough task, but yeah, no, is like I said, not the greatest performance from Shea, but we are able to still get a sweep. So I'm not mad. You'll
No,
probably
no.
you'll probably get some Thunder fans that are, why isn't Shea shooting 60%, bro? I don't care at this
Why you
point.
get
I,
30?
I don't I
Yeah.
don't care, bro. If we could get a dub, that's all that matters to me at this point. It could be the ugliest game, and if we still win, I'm content with it. You
You're
know what I
more than
mean?
happy with that, for
Exactly.
sure.
But
100%. I love that, man. I think you deserve it. Thunder have been a dominant team all season. They've just outclassed every single opponent that they've come across, and I think again this was no different. The Grizzlies were trying to climb Mount Everest in this situation. The Thunder being Everest, and they just weren't able to reach that summit. So more power to them. Hopefully, they have a good offseason. The question still remains: do they think they have a roster that can win an NBA championship, or are they going to have to make some changes down the line? We know what the Thunder are. We know where they're headed. But the Grizzlies need to answer some questions. They just haven't got past the second round, I
second
think.
round.
Yeah. So that's really it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you said, bro, the sweep and then the Grizzlies and just they had a chance to get one game and they weren't able to do it, and that kind of changed everything for me. I was like, oh well, there you go. It's like getting a 19 when you play at 21.
Yeah. Literally, they lost that game, bro. It's
Dealer,
crazy.
but yeah, you bust, bro. You bust. Dealer got 21.
but yeah, no,
Hey,
it's
be safe gambling for real.
facts.
No, but yeah, the I don't know, man. The Thunder are just in a different, and they're in a tier of their own. They're in a different tier than all these other NBA teams for sure. But
Hmm.
hey, man, let's chop it up about the Nuggets and Clips, man. What you think? So far, obviously, we had that nail biter, 99-101. Aaron Gordon barely. You have to
Bro,
click it, click, just to see, with the putback dunk, getting it off before the buzzer. So props to the Nuggets. They've been battling all series, man. I think Nikola Jokic in that game at least had 36 points, 23 boards, I think. What was it, like 10 assists or something nuts?
yeah,
I need to see the assists. I think 8 assists. My bad. So damn near triple double. This series has been close all the way. I think each quarter they kind of score relatively the same amount. I think in the fourth quarter in this game four, the Clippers only were able to muster 16 points. And honestly, it seems like it's coming down to that. What happens in the fourth quarter? So can you score? Are you guarding? Are you making sure you're in the right defensive position to be able to handle guarding Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Nikola Jokic, all of these different pieces? This is such a war, bro. It's such a mental battle and such a physical battle. I think, Ivica Zubac has been done extremely well and just helping them be physical. And then James Harden, I think, you know, to me, he's looking like he's in the best shape of his life, and he's also looking to have the best playoffs he's ever had. And that's not good for the Nuggets. He's averaging what, like almost, I think, 20 points, 8 assists in the series or something like that. So
hmm
on pretty efficient shooting. So really no question marks there either. I think the Clippers are in a very good spot right now. Even though they took that loss in game five, even though they're down 3-2, Jamal Murray getting 43 points, that just can't happen. We spoke about him earlier in the series, but he tends to rise in playoff moments. And so whenever he gets down to business, the Clippers are going to be in trouble. So they still have to figure out maybe they got to stick Kawhi on him and just have him follow him the entire game, even though that's not what you want to do. You can't have Jamal Murray go off for 45 points and also deal with Jokic. So Christian Brown, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, Jokic, Westbrook. Like the Nuggets have a ton of pieces that cause the Clippers a ton of problems, but the Clippers also have the Norman Powells, right? The James Hardens, the Ivica Zubats, obviously Kawhi. They have those pieces to counteract that. So I think it's literally a perfect chess match. To me, this is the best series that we've had so far, especially with it being 3-2 and going to a game six. I think game six is in Denver.
Game 6 would be in LA, I think. I think Denver's the 4 seed.
Four seed. Okay, okay. So yeah, they get the game seven. Okay, makes sense. So yeah, the next game's in LA, bro. I think the Clippers will be able to get that W. I think look for Kawhi Leonard to continue to be X Kawhi, bro. Just the X factor, man, a machine, the robot. Just what he's been able to provide them, I think, has helped them a ton in this series. And I don't think if you're not getting this version of Kawhi Leonard, I don't think the Clippers would have won those two games that they've been able to win. And I think what Jokic does on the offensive end for the Nuggets, I think it just does takes away so much energy from him on the defensive end that the Clippers need to hurt them there. They need to be able to outscore the Nuggets, and so you just can't have Jamal Murray or MPJ or Aaron Gordon doing those little things like they've been doing. That's honestly been losing them these games. I think it was a classic game four. It's kind of like the sum of this series. Just it's going to go down the wire every single time. It's going to be a nail biter. I think obviously the Nuggets are in that similar position as the Grizzlies are with them firing their head coach and having Adelman in there. And they've done a pretty good job of controlling and managing the pace. I will say Coach Adelman's done an extremely good job of letting Nikola Jokic kind of be the on-court coach and then letting them kind of figure it out as they go along. What I will say he does a better job at than Michael Malone is he plays to the strength of the game, which means if Russell Westbrook is hitting two or three threes and he hit it in the first half, he's going to play Russell Westbrook in the fourth quarter because he may hit a big three again. And I think that also some of the coaching decisions has also impacted these teams too, especially deep in the end of games. We talked about game two with all the Clippers turnovers. So sometimes I think it's just going to come down to what they can do in the clutch. I think again, both of these teams are literally even on the net rating. That's why it's been so close, and fourth quarter scoring has been very similar. But I think this series, in my opinion, is probably the most important series for the Nuggets that they've had in their entire franchise history. The reason I bring that up is because Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, I think, are on their last hurrah. If there's any season that they can get to the NBA Finals, I think it's this one. Just with their, I think Christian Braun provides help, but especially in the offensive end. But Russell Westbrook, MPJ, Aaron Gordon, right? Some of those guys, even Jamal Murray, Jokic, they're a bit older. They do have an older roster, so I think their window is a little bit shorter. The Clippers, though, man, I think they, with their current structure and the way that they've built their team, they're in a similar spot to the Nuggets, but I do believe in Kawhi Leonard and James Harden ability to continue to battle. And honestly, I feel like they have the same level of skilled players that the Nuggets do. And so that's why this series has been so close. But I'm still going with what I chose, bro. I'm not an LA Clippers fan, so I'm going with the Nuggets. I think in seven. I think they'll be able to get it done on their home court. But what are your thoughts about this series, man, and how seesaw it's been going back and forth?
Yeah, bro. Like I said, I've been keeping a close eye on this series because this is going to be our potential matchup. So just been pretty much, like I said, told you earlier, probably the best series in the playoffs so far. And, I think it's really been, like you said, just a chess match, bro. Seeing what coach is going to come out there with a better game plan. And the thing that has been impressing me the most is really the Clippers defense. Prior to this loss last game, Whenever they're clicking, that defense is pretty scary, bro. There was a lineup. It was like
Oh
a
yeah.
small ball lineup. It had, I think it was like Ben Simmons, Chris Dunn, Derrick Jones Jr.,
Oh, Chris Dunn's been awesome. Chris
bro,
Dunn's been awesome.
Nicholas Batum, like, and I think it was
Batum's been awesome.
I think it was Bogdanovich. It was their bench, but like their bench was able to defend pretty well, bro. Like even going against like Jokic and stuff, like they put Ben on Jokic. Obviously, Jokic is gonna get his, but just the way that they were able to play him, it looked like the Nuggets weren't able to do anything. So that was something I've been super impressed of, and it's something that the Clippers have been one of the best defensive teams all year. You know what I mean? So it's been right in front of our eyes. Just I think seeing it played against arguably the best player in the league, it kind of says something, you know. So that's something
Yeah,
that
yeah, sets the
it's
tone.
right. So I think seeing that, and then just kind of like you were saying, bro, that game winner. That game winning dunk, bro. That shit
Oh,
was the craziest. Probably one of the craziest things I've ever seen. I'm not gonna lie. Like the fact that they
yeah.
were having to do it click by click and seeing if he dropped it in before the buzzer went off and then went right when they won. It was crazy, bro. But yeah, no, it's been super good, bro. It's been, I don't know. This is one of those. I think it's more than likely gonna go to 7. I think the Clips can get this win in LA, but I think the Nuggets, bro. I just, the way that I've been seeing Jokic play this whole playoffs, he's not the question.
Oh man.
It's been, can Jamal Murray drop 30? Can he drop 25? Because I think that's what they're going to need, obviously, after this last game. But, really impressed with MPJ, bro. Obviously, he got injured for everyone that doesn't know. I think it's like an AC joint or something. Not too sure.
Yep, non-shooting shoulder.
Non-shooting shoulder. So, but obviously he's probably going through a lot of pain. But what he's been able to provide with that injury, I've been super impressed because he's still taking MPJ shots. Tough, like contested in our eyes, but I mean probably wide open for him because he's like 6'10". But just like closing out on him, step back, hitting it, like switching it. You know what I mean? So this series, bro, has been. Like I said, this is going to be our potential matchup. So it's kind of just seeing what team is looking good. What, obviously we know what to worry about the Nuggets, right? Jokic, but who's gonna be, the Batman, or like the Robin to the Batman. You know what I mean? So just kind of like scoping out the competition, and just it's looking like, I'm not gonna lie, bro. I would prefer to go against the Clips, or I would prefer to go against the Nugs. I'm not gonna lie, because I think the Clippers just, they match up with us better, like defensively. I think they're a lot more versatile. They have role players that are coming off the bench hitting big shots. I think that's something in a series that can shift. And not saying the Nuggets don't. Obviously, they have Jokic, like you said, they have Christian Brown, they have MPJ, they have these players. But I think what I've been seeing from the Clippers, they just look like they're playing at a higher intensity. You know what I mean? I think that's
Yeah,
something that can really,
playoff intensity.
exactly, and that's something that can like shake up a series. So I, obviously not saying either one. Like, I feel like I feel confident in my squad, but I feel like I would rather see the Nuggets, but the Clippers are just as good. And I think I'm more so on the versatility end. I just think they have more players
Yeah,
that can
yeah.
guard from 1 through 5, and especially seeing that kind of small ball lineup that, like, I felt like I hadn't really seen before. I low key forgot Ben Simmons was on the Clippers. I'm not gonna lie to you. And then I saw him and I was like, fuck, they got Ben coming off the bench, bro. And he's not gonna be Ben Simmons in Philly, but he
Ben
could play.
Simmons from
He
yeah.
he he could defend. He could dribble the ball down the court. He could pass. You know what I mean? So it's one of those players that, like,
You can do something.
right. And I think that's something, not saying it would give us problems, but it could give us problems. So, but yeah, no, it's been a great series, bro. Like you said, just it's been a seesaw of a series, and it's dope to see that
Yeah.
because I feel like this was, going into it, a lot of people probably didn't think the Clippers were as good as they've been showing themselves to be, but they've been quiet. Like, Harden quietly had probably one of the better months that to wrap up the regular season. Quietly, I feel like he was averaging like 30 and damn near 10, I think, maybe like 9 or something. So
Yeah, bro. He
it's
like crossed over Evan Mobley, the defensive player of the year, and like
yeah. And then
got
like you
him on that
said,
little.
can't forget about Kawhi, right? He's always there,
Oh
and
man,
I feel like they're like a Norman Powell game away from him, or Norman Powell like legacy game from winning this series. So they're right there,
series.
man.
Yeah,
It's gonna be a good one. Can't wait to see the game. I think it's tomorrow, game 6, and then the game 7 is right after it, literally the next day. So it's gonna be a tough one, bro.
wow.
But yeah, no,
Yeah,
that it's kind of been man.
yeah. Last final thoughts. I think this series is just going to come down to what happens in the fourth. Like I brought it up, and then just the defensive coverages. So doubling Jokic, maybe they might have to double Kawhi, depending on if Murray's cooking. But who's in the game in the fourth quarter is unbeknownst to us. Like it's not clear. These
Yo,
coaches are very whoever is doing it is going to be in there. So I like this series for that reason. Like you mentioned earlier, it's the best chess match we have on the board, so people should enjoy it. But man, you ready to chop it up about my Lakers?
yeah, yeah, man.
The purple and gold faithful. So obviously we are down 3-1, and there's no excuses. I want to make that very clear. There's no excuses. Saw a lot of excuses on Twitter about Luka tripping, this happening, the foul call on LeBron in Game 4. Hey, that's besides the point. Let's start with Game 3. Okay, where did this happen? We're coming off of 2 days of rest. All right, start off okay. Scored 26 points in the first quarter to the Timberwolves 32. Mind you, whatever. The Timberwolves, this is their first home game. Obviously, you're expecting them to have some juice. I wasn't necessarily expecting to win Game 3. Um, but what I noticed was we were relying on a 40-year-old man named LeBron James. He scored 38 points in this game. I was texting the group chat, just doing everything up and down the court, hitting triples, just really being the lifeline to our offense. And while a couple months ago, there's nothing wrong with that, we got a man named Luka Doncic that needs to be involved. And so far, I think he's averaging like 4 assists in this playoff series. So the Timberwolves have done an extremely good job of keeping him at bay. Not from a scoring perspective, he still got 40 in the first game and then 30s across the board, but from getting other people involved and then turning us into an ISO heavy team, I think that's where the Timberwolves have had the upper hand on us all series. And they've shut me up, man. Their defensive rating continues to shine through, and there's nothing I can do about it. And watching AR struggle a bit, and then obviously some of our role players struggle a bit. I think it's just a testament to how the Timberwolves have been guarding us. Even in Game 3, Julius Randle just being a pest, being everywhere on defense, and then Jaden McDaniels is a hero. I told you this a few podcasts ago, but he cannot be getting 30 points like he had in Game 3. If Julius Randle and Nas Reed are going to get 30 points, or sorry, Jaden McDaniels and Nas Reed are going to get 30 points, while Julius Randle and Ant are also still scoring. That's not a recipe for success. We don't even have that type of depth on our squad, right? So I think we failed to keep up the pace of scoring that I would like. The Minnesota Timberwolves just looked extremely promising, especially in Game 3. Just the way that they were able to dominate pretty much the entire game. I think in that second quarter in Game 3 we had 32 points, so we were able to kind of fight back and make it and make this closer. But another thing I wanted to bring this up to you is our fourth quarter scoring is horrible right now. We're averaging like 20 points in the fourth quarter, and I think when you get the Timberwolves who have, non-tired legs, right? Like they're on a certain rotation. Their depth allows them to have a deeper rotation, which means their guys are less tired, simply put. So whenever you're subbing in Nas Reed and Dante DiVincenzo at the end of games, it gets tough because our squad can't sub. We don't really have players we can trust in a playoff scenario, especially when the game gets tight. And I think that hurt us in Game 3. I think LeBron James is really just ageless, but you can't be relying on him to do that much damage if you want to win the game. So we unfortunately took a loss in Game 3. I think it was 104, 118, or 116, if I'm not mistaken. But just a solid performance by the Timberwolves, and Jaden McDaniels has really been the X factor in the series. But moving on to Game 4, and this is the game I expected us to win, and this is where you know, I think what I just spoke about still reigns true. Our fourth quarter scoring in this game was also horrible. We only scored 19 points in this fourth quarter, but we were leading throughout this game. And that's what's shocking is we had the upper hand in this game. We looked like we were playing with the playoff intensity that I saw in game 2, that desperation. In this game, JJ laid it all on the line, and in the second half, he played all of our starters the entire way, which, to be honest with you, I like. I think if we're going to lose, we should lose with our best players out there. And if you aren't willing to go 24 minutes, I don't think you should be willing to play in the playoffs. It's that simple. So I have no issues with what he did and kind of the way that the game transpired at the end. But I will say we have been looking tired in the fourth quarter. And honestly, we couldn't guard Anthony Edwards in this game. He had 43 points in game 4. I think we've talked about him. He struggled in the series a bit from an efficiency perspective. However, in this game, he was extremely efficient, and he was the Anthony Edwards that, I'm sure you'll ask me a question in a bit. That's the pest that we've come to know and love, and that continues to do damage to other franchises that aren't named the Timberwolves. The Suns included, right? Because of what he was doing to KD last year. But I think it's just a testament to the player that he's grown into, his ability to create for others, and then also just the three-point shooting has been an extreme swing factor in this series. We haven't gotten up the threes or made the threes that the Timberwolves have. I think in this game, too, if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to get the numbers wrong, we shot 19 of 47 from deep, which is great. We won the three-point battle in this game, which is, if you're looking at the box score, you would assume we would have won. But our fourth quarter just was so bad, and I think it was tired legs. Anthony Edwards, I like the guy as a basketball player, but he's definitely been getting under our skin in terms of what he's bringing to the game with his energy, his activity on the defensive end, and just being annoying. And then also Julius Randle, I wanted to bring him up too. I think he had another 25 and 7 or 8 rebound performance. And so when you're getting that type of output from those players, you're going to find yourself losing a lot of playoff games. We don't have a ton of depth. I'm looking at our bench right now. Our bench scoring was Dorian Finney-Smith with 6 points in game 4. He was the entire bench scoring. Mm-hmm. He had 6 points. The rest of our offense came from our starters, which isn't a problem. I think Rui Hachimura has been, we haven't talked about him a lot, but what are the Wizards doing? I think that was another bad trade that they made, but he obviously can play at an extremely high level too. He had a massive triple to put us up too, and he took off his mask and he was smiling and laughing. I remember I was looking at my girl. I was like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, Rui Hachimura is the real deal, bro. Like, the real deal. I thought we were going to be able to really win this game and get this important W, but we're staring at a 3-1 deficit, man, and we're staring right at it in the face, and we've got a lot of questions that we have to answer. I think going forward, playoff intensity is an issue, but making sure that Luka can get other players involved is going to be extremely important in this game. I think Austin Reeves has struggled, didn't really struggle that much in this game. He's 6 of 14, but 5 of 12 from deep, which I love. Honestly, if AR can get up 13, 14 triples and hit 6 or 7 of them, I don't care how bad he shot from 2, to be honest. But giving us, 17 to 20 points a game, it would be nice to see Luka Doncic filling up the stat sheet a little bit more other than the 2 assists and 1 rebound. And then our defensive issues stem from him. Nico Harrison brought it up. Everybody's been wondering if I'm going to bring it up and if we're going to talk about it. Yeah, he's a traffic cone. He's not somebody that we can trust on defense. And we still have to figure out what we can do because we need him on offense to be able to score points. And so it's really the trade-off that you have to make, right? Whenever we made that trade initially, we knew Anthony Davis is a better defender than Luka Doncic, but we were hoping that the offense would be able to suffice that. And in this game 4, we just let go of the rope. I don't know what it was. I've touched on the defense. I've touched on the effort. Anthony Edwards has killed us this series. I think just being the initiator, and then his three-point shooting has been great all series. I think he's shooting like 42% from 3. Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle have been the X factors for the Timberwolves, and then Luka Doncic just hasn't been able to get going from not a scoring perspective, but getting other people involved, which is honestly where I see him bringing elevating our team up to that next level. Is when he's getting 9 or 10 assists within the course of a game, it just gives other people belief that they're good too. Like I said, Game 4, Dorian Finney-Smith was our only bench scoring with 6 points, so there's really not much you can do there. I think in this next game, elimination game, Doncic is going 46 minutes. LeBron is going 46 minutes. AR is going 46 minutes. Finney Smith is going 36 minutes. Jackson Hayes is going to play 2 minutes, right? Hachimura is going to go 40 minutes. We know the starting lineup. We know the guys who are going to play. We have to answer these questions of, can we stop Nas Reed and Julius Randle and Jaden McDaniels? Can we turn Ant into a 2-point paint-only type of guy instead of a 3-point Stephen Curry type shooter? Can we figure out how to get Luka Doncic to want to involve his teammates on the offensive end? Can we get up 3-point shoot? Can we get up high quality 3-point shots and then make them at a high clip? We know the Timberwolves are going to shoot them. That's been the question pretty much all series, is if can the Lakers really, I don't know, compete with them on the defensive end and then hit the same amount of threes that they can hit. And so far, we haven't been able to do so, bro.
Yeah, bro, you did a perfect analysis, bro. Honestly, you're
When I
watching.
had so much,
Yeah,
I
I was about
had
to say
so much to
you've been
say.
obviously this is your squad, so you're gonna be locked in and the nitty gritty details and stuff. But kind of just what I've been able to see, like you said, Jaden McDaniel scoring 30 points. Y'all cannot allow that. For one, we know what he can do. We know that he was an offensive player in high school and college and stuff, but scoring, I think that was his. I know that was his playoff career high, but I think he
Yeah,
scored like 26 points in the paint as well. So, or 24 or something. That was a record for the Timberwolves. So, you just can't allow that. I know that y'all are,
hey,
y'all are playing a smaller lineup, and I think he's probably going to be the tallest player on the court usually since they don't have Rudy out there. But yeah, that just can't happen, bro. Especially when you have Ant scoring 20 plus, Julius Randle scoring 20 plus, and then you get a Nas Reed or a DiVincenzo game. It's just a lot to handle. So yeah, no, that's kind of been really him, and then like you said, Julius Randle have been their X factors, because I feel like we're or I don't know if the Lakers are or JJ is, but from a consumer of watching
yeah,
basketball,
yeah,
we were questioning, and I feel like at this point in the series, that's something that your Lakers, they should realize that, okay, this is a different type of Julius Randle. He is
yeah.
clearly the second option, and he's able to thrive in that spot. Ant's
He's
obviously
so
the first,
good.
but he's doing great, bro. Hitting big shots, and then like I said, when y'all play that small lineup, he just kind of is able to kind of bully,
Many
get a
people.
switch, yeah, like get a switch on
Yeah,
AR. That's easy money for him, So it's been
bro, they haven't had to play Gobert at all.
at all, at all, bro. It's crazy.
I'm like, yeah. I'm like, bro, we cannot, like you're saying, we can't run around with Nas Reed, DiVincenzo, McDaniels, Randall, because the Timberwolves will play small because we're playing small. And all of those guys are honestly better than a Vando, a Gabe Vincent, and Jordan Goodwin. Like, there's a reason those guys aren't in the game. No offense to them. I love those guys. I think Vando sparingly plays because he can contribute on the defensive end. But outside of that, he's not going to score. Right,
No.
so Hachimura, AR, LeBron, Luca, and it goes in that order. AR is the third one, but then Luca's the first. He kind of starts the scoring for our entire offense, then everybody else follows suit. But Ant has been doing that for the Timberwolves, and that's why they're here. 3-1. It hasn't been done. I think it's been done twice. Including the finals. So
Mm-hmm.
um, who knows, man? Who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah. Kind of going off of that. I asked you this question prior to us recording, but like, what are your thoughts on Ant, bro? Like, do you like him? What are your
Yeah, I yeah, I said this to you. I think I explained it, about an hour ago now, but everybody wears their colors differently. You remember what I said? So he wears his colors a certain way that could bother some people, right? I know some people may not like the in your face and the way that the energy, the type of energy that he brings to the game. I like Ant, the basketball player. I will say it's annoying whenever he's doing it to my team. I think we talked about it too, but he's just got to prove it to those guys, right? I think it's one thing to clap in your face and then have the rings and the accolades and the All NBA teams to back that up, but there's a reason you don't see LeBron James or Kevin Durant doing that back to him, right? And it's because those guys have MVPs. Like they're not worried about that. Basically, what do they have to prove to Anthony Edwards? You know, they're not. So even in that game that he was talking to him, I think Bron ended up finishing with 35 and 38 points both times. I think LeBron's averaging almost 30 points in this playoff series, and we talked about him has one of the highest career playoff scoring averages in NBA history. So that's not really a bear that you want to poke. Same with Luka. Not really somebody that you want to poke. But he's poking them right now, and it's working. You know, and that's bothersome to me. I don't think we've responded well to his antics and what he's bringing kind of in that regard to the game. But the way that he's been able to, as a basketball player, just Anthony Edwards, it's so demoralizing to see him hit threes and get 43 points and be able to get paint touches and be effective. And it's just a testament to the type of player that he's been able to become and mold himself into. And I know the Timberwolves are extremely proud of him and what he's been able to accomplish. And even if that's a couple first round, second round playoff wins, it all stacks to something. So he has a long career ahead of him. I'm sure he'll go to an NBA Finals at some point. But really, to me, you got to just prove that before you can do that, at least in my opinion. But again, everybody wears their colors differently. I love that.
Yeah, perfectly said, bro. Because I was telling you, even when I asked you that question, I love Ant as a player, but when he's doing it against your team, bro, shit is mad annoying. So that's why I wanted to ask you, because he's obviously a great player, but I feel like the thing with us, it's like you just got to prove it to us. Like you're able
Yeah,
to you're
yeah.
able to back it up in this moment, but next round or
He's
whatever it
having a
is, you
moment.
still kind of like
Yeah,
the Dame and
exactly like that.
Tyrese, right? So
Yeah,
I
bro, you having a moment.
right,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
like to be honest with you, I even think Tyrese Halliburton may have learned from that a little bit because like even with the Pacers now, I don't think they're gonna be acting that way because they know it's just a moment. Like,
Mhm.
Dame got hurt, whatever. You're clapping in people's face, Ant's clapping in LeBron's face, whatever. But it's just a moment. Like we'll see in the second round. We'll see if you can. First of all, you haven't won the series, but second of all, if you do, we'll see. We'll see. So I like it, man. I don't have any problems with it. Kind of even going into this next series, I think they're similar. With Dylan Brooks, right, and Butler. Just when you have highly emotional guys who are highly competitive, you're gonna get a ton of fire. So I'm excited for this game tonight. I think the Lakers and Timberwolves game is obviously the game of the night to me at least. But both games, Rockets and Warriors, I think they're both elimination games. So last one for the Rockets, last one for the Warriors. So I know you're going to be watching those games like a hawk. But man, let's get right into it, man. I think Jimmy Butler, bro. I mean, what can you say? He's doing it at all levels at this point. I spoke about it almost 2 months ago now. I want to say almost 60 days to the date, but I think the way that he left Miami rubbed me the wrong way. And I spoke about it for about 10 minutes on here. I said, I don't like that about him. I think he likes to leave certain places on negative terms, which isn't cool in my opinion. But for him to come back from an injury you shouldn't come back from in less than 2 weeks, go out there, give the playoff energy, the playoff Jimmy energy that Steve Kerr and everybody's been talking about. Be a pest to Dylan Brooks, contribute over 20 points a night. Bro, it's given Steph an ultimate green light to be Steph Curry. And we've talked about the Rockets and the flip side and what they have. Şengün's awesome, but they don't have anybody who can score like those guys, man. They don't
Mhm.
have Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler who could put up 60 or 70 points on any given night, depending on if Steph wants to go for 40 or 50. I think Jimmy is also in his Batman role too, bro, and he's completely fine with not getting 60 balls anymore or 50 points like he was doing for the Heat. Like he
Mhm.
doesn't need to do that. Draymond's tying that whole operation together with that small ball lineup too. Kuminga also showing up in the dark.
Mhm.
You can talk shit about him, but he's gonna get paid one day because he's always ready. He brought it up. He says he stays ready so he doesn't have to get ready. And I think that's why Steve Kerr is going out there and trusting him with the belief of, play. I think he's an NBA champion as well.
Mm-hmm.
Kuminga is not somebody who's a rookie anymore, even though he's very young. He's definitely somebody who's been around. So Steve Kerr is able to trust him in that regard. And then the Rockets for me are just the question marks are it's just all surrounding their offense. I think they've had a great defensive series, bro. Ime has coached the hell out of this series. He's allowed, the Thompson twin to kind of terrorize Curry a little bit and stick with him and run around him. I don't think he's impacted him that much. Stephen Curry's still been a highly effective player, and I think Podziemski has also helped them out a ton. But Fred Van Fleet, Jalen Green, Şengün, like it's not enough for me. And I
Mm-hmm.
think tonight they're gonna go home because of that. I just think, playoff Jimmy. I think Curry had what was it, 38 in Game Five,
36, yeah. Went crazy.
36 in Game Five. So went crazy, man. Just nobody's been able to figure out that formula of how to guard Steph Curry or Nikola Jokic, and I don't know if you ever will. And I think Ime is willing to live. I mean, he saw it firsthand, obviously, but he's willing to live with kind of the Curry moments that you have, right? Going back to the finals when they lost,
Mm-hmm.
you got to just chalk it up sometimes because that guy is that great. Steve Kerr firmly believes in his greatness too, and I think that's really rallied the Warriors and their playoff belief going forward. Is man, we can beat a higher seed than us. Obviously, the Rockets were the 2 seed, by the way. Let's not forget.
Mm-hmm.
They really have no excuse not to be able to score when it matters most, not knowing their defensive assignments in clutch time. I think it just speaks to the young team that they have right now. Whenever I pull up the game, bro, whenever I was looking at the game, when I was watching it, I also noticed that, the Warriors are matching, if not above, the Rockets' intensity at times on the road or at home. I don't know if that's Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green just being vocal leaders or whatever, but I think they just got that playoff pedigree that's playing to their side right now, man. And extremely exciting series. It could go seven. I don't know if they're gonna win tonight. The only way that the Rockets will be able to win tonight is that they can outshoot the Warriors, make sure they can win the 3 point battle, and then shoot a decent percentage from the floor. My goodness, I think they've been shooting like 43% from the floor this series, or like 45. So definitely not the best. But they're right there, bro. They only lost by 3 points. It's not like they've been getting blown out this entire series, right? So they have a few key things that they can work on that would put them over the hump. I think getting Şengün more involved is extremely important. He had 31, I think it was a couple of nights ago. So if they can let him be the beast that he is, I think that guy should be your main focus, and then everybody else should go off of there. I think they should play through Şengün more to allow Jalen Green and Fred Van Vliet open opportunities in their offense. But the way that the Warriors run offense too, man, like I've said it a bunch of times, but it's a college team, very difficult to guard. A lot of sets. It's not free basketball. It's things that they're calling before, and then they kind of just run a play, and then they play out of that. So it's kind of old school type of basketball, but it works for Steve Kerr and the Golden State Warriors, and it's been working for the Warriors pretty much all series. I think they've also outscored the Rockets in the fourth quarter too, which again, we've brought up first quarter scoring and fourth quarter scoring a lot on this podcast. It's extremely important in the playoffs because those are the 2 quarters that I would say are the most important when it comes to determining a playoff game and the outcome. So if the Warriors blitz them in the first quarter, definitely look for them to go wire to wire, which means they lead the entire way. But yeah, man, I would love to hear your thoughts kind of on Jalen Green and kind of the question marks surrounding the Rockets right now because they're on the brink of elimination, so they got to figure it out too, just like the Lake Show.
Yeah, yeah, bro. I think that was really my main question, right? Was kind of going into the series was what Jalen Green would we get, and I think we saw that game two. I think that's when they won, and
Yeah,
I think he dropped like 38 or something. But these last two games, he's been under 10. Both games, I think four he had 8, and then game three he had 9. So that's just like you were saying, it's something that he was their leading scorer throughout the whole season, and obviously first time being in the playoffs. We could look past it a little bit, but I think kind of basing off my prediction was Jalen Green was gonna be, not scoring 25, but at least getting 15, 20 maybe, because that's kind of what, the type of player that we know he can be. But I just think that
Yeah.
the defense that the Warriors have been able to provide, and it's just too much. And I think, like
You
you said,
saw it when he scores, bro. Like
yep,
they'll win.
they'll win. Yeah, I think that's really the only thing that's missing. If he's hitting, then it's a different game. But like you said, the Rockets. I think this playoff series for sure has proven to me that Sengun is that guy. And like you said, kind of, obviously he's not to the caliber of Jokic yet. Not saying that he can't be or he will be, but it's kind of like that's kind of the model that they should probably try to, like, the blueprint that they should model their game after. Having a good big man that could kind of get to it anywhere. Not that great at shooting threes. I think that's another reason why he's a little different type of player. But when he's in the paint, when he's in the mid range, he's able to facilitate. He's able to score. Get some rebounds. But I think like you said, it's really just the fourth quarter, bro. You know what I mean? I think that's the
Yeah.
time, a lot like Jalen Brunson in that series that we talked to with the Pistons and the Knicks. It just, the Warriors have one of those guys who don't shy away from that moment, and you got to guard him pretty much once he steps past half court. So it's tough for them. They've been one of the best defensive teams in the league, but it's kind of like the Magic in a sense. They just can't get any offense from anybody besides their star or their two stars, like in the Magic's case. But
They
you know
they got to run this screen and roll with Jalen Green and Şengün more, bro. They
yes,
gotta maybe even abuse it because yeah, I don't think Van Fleet is as spry as he once was, like on the Raptors. I don't think he's gonna give you 25 in a playoff
no.
series.
No, I don't think so. I think he's he's
So
he's what they needed, right? Him and Dylan Brooks. I remember we talked about it 2 years
yeah,
ago, 3 years ago, like having a good veteran presence and
veteran.
slow
Yeah,
slow
of
the game
course.
slow the game down, because they were kind of like an AAU team in a sense, just kind of running and gunning. But like you said, when it comes down to playoffs and when you're going against someone like a team like this, it's tough. Like, yeah, you got to put the ball in the hands of your young guys, see what they can do, because that's really gonna be where the game boils down to, and I think that's kind of something where, hopefully, they don't get gentlemen sweep, but we'll see, bro, because it depends what game are we getting out of Jalen Green, honestly, because no one else has really been able to provide any offense, and that's kind of
Hey,
where
I
they've
just
been.
saw the score and
Yeah,
it's they're competing.
they're
So,
competing.
like there's nothing wrong with that. I think like I've questioned the Rockets a lot and I just brought it up. I think the answer to my we haven't brought this up yet, but the free throw disparity too is an issue. They got to get to the line. They got to abuse those pick and rolls with Şengün and Jalen Green because
Mhm.
once they figure out who's going to be the motor to their offense on a daily day basis, then they're better than the Warriors for sure. They have more depth. They're a better team overall, but I think the Warriors have more star power, and that goes back to the question that we brought up in another like a more recent podcast too. Is like star power versus depth, right? And I
Mhm.
think the Warriors just they got it all.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
bro. It's been a
Yes,
it's a
sir.
it's a 3-1 lead for the Warriors, but I feel like this has been also one of the more competitive series that we've had in the playoffs for sure. It's not showing through the record, but the Rockets are, it was never their defense that we were questioning. I feel like it's really just been their offense
No,
all season. So,
definitely. Yeah, bro. So yeah, man, I think that was pretty much we just recapped the entire playoffs so far. A couple series have concluded. Timberwolves and Lakers game is tonight at 9 p.m. and then Warriors Rockets we were just chopping it up about. Obviously they're playing right now. Rockets are leading, so that's exciting. They're starving off elimination. CJ, I don't know. It's been a little while since we've talked about it, but how did your bets do last Wednesday? I think it's a week to the day now.
yeah, not too good, but let me recap it for y'all exactly. That was my
For
parlay
sure.
I had right.
Yeah, maybe so. I had a couple plays that all hit low key.
Really?
Yep, Donnie hit, and then Hero hit, and then that over hit.
Okay. I
Yeah, like the
see.
Cavs heat went soaring.
Oh yeah,
Two
so
thirteen was yeah, that's too low.
I'm looking at it right now. So I had a little six man. I got technically three right, but that was the game that Jimmy got injured. So shout out to Prize Picks.
Oh, right,
They
right. That
rebooted
didn't
it.
really, yeah.
But my ones that didn't hit was Ty Jerome. I had him going for 17 and a half. He only got 6. And then I had Curry getting 26, and he only got 20 that game. But all my other ones hit. Peyton Pritchard got 14. His line was 12. And Davion Mitchell hit 2 threes, and it was at 1.5. And then
I was gonna do that and I missed it, but
and
it
then
hit for
and
sure.
then Paolo dropped 32, and his line was 26. So went
Okay.
I would say I went 3 for 3. I don't count that my fault, 3 for 3. I went 3 for 5. Sorry,
Okay.
I don't
That's not
count that
bad at
read.
all, bro.
Not too bad. Not too
That's
bad, bro.
honestly, I was gonna say I'm gonna keep track of your POD. I think your shit hit though. It was Davion Mitchell. It was
Mm.
just 2 threes. I think
Yes,
that was the one you said to bet.
it was.
So
It
I'm just
was.
keeping track of it. Yeah, I remember. I was like that. If you were like, if I had any one, it would be that one. So I'm like, all right, that one would have hit. Like if somebody would have taken it. So that's cool. I brought up Tyler Hero points, Mitchell points, and then that over. I think I was very Cavs Heat focused. So
Mhm.
I took the over 213 as a 213 and a half for my POD. If you want to include the plan where we did Trey Young points and assists, that would make me that would make me 3-1 because Sabonis missed against the Mavericks.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I had the play of the day was the Heat Cavs over 213 and a half. So that ended up coming through for you. But if you also took Hero or Donovan Mitchell, you ended up cashing. I think that series and that specific game was the let's go back a week. Let's see exactly that box score. Because I want to say they played on Wednesday. It was the 23rd. The total was 112 to 121. Donovan Mitchell had 30, and then Hero had 33. So it was
Mm.
like literally them two. They were going at it, and it was for the over. So definitely smashed. Did you say your pick for today or no? Not yet.
Nah, I didn't say my pick for
All right.
today.
Okay, cool. I'll get into mine first, and then I'll spin it back to you. My play for today, though, this one's good because I feel like these guys are just it's time. Like I'm a Lakers fan. I can trust the Lakers. I'm not taking their money line, but I am taking LeBron 20 plus and then Luca 30 plus. Just take it. I think it's like plus 160 or something like that. I also have Curry in there, over 24 and a half. I don't know how he's doing right now, but I'm not going to count that because it's already 7 p.m. So, if somebody were to watch this back, like whatever. Just my play of the day is that Lakers parlay because we're on an elimination right now. I think the line for LeBron was like minus 360 at 19 and a half, and then 30 plus for Luca is minus 150. So you get like plus 150 something.
Hmm.
So not bad, not bad. But a little parlay. I'm doing two today.
I might have to follow that parlay, bro. Tell that one real
Yeah, it's
quick.
like a 20 and 10. Like, think
Yeah.
about it. 10 more points, Luca get 30, and then LeBron, he's going to have 20.
Right. Yeah. So I had my play of the day. I'll just give one, but I'll also tell you my other one as well. I have a total score over 210.5 for the Lakers Timberwolves game.
Oh,
I have
you
that
think it
one.
goes over?
I think it goes over, bro. I think it's gonna be a little shootout. Honestly, think your squad. That's why I was like, I'm probably gonna tell you on your picks because I think it's gonna be it's time. It's one of those games,
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
time. Yeah. Like JJ's going to leave it all out there, as
Hmm.
if he already did in game four. But game five is like game five. Like, Luca, LeBron, like, it's time, bro. It's
Right.
time.
And then my other one, I just tossed it in there as well. I had Warriors at +4, not looking that great right now, but we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Fred VanVleet's going off, so if that cools down, the Rockets are going to be in some trouble. So we'll see, man. But did you have anything else you wanted to share with the lovely audience today, man?
No, man. Just, kind of what I've been saying this whole time, bro. Just watch these games, bro. These been super competitive. That it might be 3-1 or, whatever it may be, but these games are, regardless of where it's at in the series, they're great games. It's best time of year in my eyes, but yeah, no, I'm just waiting for this Nuggets Clippers series, bro. Seeing who we play against
Yeah.
next. That's all I'm worried about right
Yep.
now.
And I'm waiting to come back down 3-1. So let's go, man. LeBron James, King James, he could do it again. He's already done it once. So y'all know how it is, man.
Yes, sir. Well,
Yes,
if
sir.
if y'all liked and enjoyed this episode, Three Man Weave, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see y'all next time, man. Peace. Three man, three man, three
Peace.
man.
3-man. 3-man.